أعوذ بالله من الشياطين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. We say Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Allah is Lord of the worlds. My name is Fatiha Sharia. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and all of his righteousness. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and all of his righteousness. My name is Mr. Sharia. This is in association with Dr. Tutor. My contact information is researchpublishingmedia at gmail.com. My name is Fatiha Sharia, Mr. Sharia. This is in association with Dr. Tutor. Dr. Tutor is my educational platform where we tutor all ages, elementary to undergraduate. We try to focus on, we actually like the young children, right? But as of right now, I'm more of in a college environment. So to get that college student that has to make decisions about what they want to learn, to put as black people in America, we have to put a value on ourselves. Again, we are coming from chattel slavery. And one of the things that America is doing as a country is they're trying to remove the crimes of chattel slavery from American society. That's 400 plus years. That includes 100 years of mental slavery, 300 years of chattel slavery, 100 years plus of mental slavery. We're now in 2024 and beyond. We are mental slaves. We choose to be in slavery. And again, you can just look at, so we have to put a value on ourselves as far as intelligence. And one of the things that Dr. Tutor stresses is math, the educating of math, mathematics, learning the language of mathematics, learning the language of mathematics. Now we want to specifically focus on math analysis. Math analysis is our foundation at this level, and from math analysis is a higher form of, I don't know if you can remember your mathematics early lessons when we were young children. Word problems. And if you were just a young black person in American society, right, adding and subtracting is real good. Algebra is actually very good, but it was the word problems that would probably give us we probably didn't like word problems because we had to think And so when you deal with the trauma of chattel slavery, right, that's like a higher level of your conscious going into your mind and understanding who you are. The brothers say that self-improvement is the basis for community development. So your community will never develop if you're always focusing outside of yourself. You have to focus on yourself. You have to focus on you first. And then from how you develop yourself, you can develop the community around you. So word problems, we had to think. And so that's going to cause some problems, right, if we're coming from chattel slavery. But it's math analysis. And we use math analysis to reconstruct how we think as black men and black women. Always understand that the black man and black woman in America, black Americans, are the nation of Judah. Nation of Judah. So when you really understand this, and God says in the scripture, Judah, God says in the scripture, I mean, you know what I'm saying, brothers and sisters, we got to learn how to do this, right? God says in the scripture that Judah is the lawgiver. Judah is the lawgiver. So if Judah is the lawgiver, right, and we're dealing with a devil, America as a country, America as a country, and the devil is anti-law to be with a hellfire. The book of Proverbs says that the devil has no sleep unless he or she causes the righteous to stumble. Right? So it's a constant, and then Allah gives us sleep or rest for our sustenance, for our strength. So the devil is a non-stop combatant against Judah, black Americans, where there is no law. I can come out and as the president of a country, I can make homosexuality legal, correct? Now that, again, that's just picking on that abomination. But one of the things I always found fascinating, and they did that with the brother Barack, they used a black man to cover up the filth so who they could point the finger at. But let's understand, again, we talk about black people organizing and separating from America and creating our own nation where we can progress in righteousness. And all of this is prophesied in the Bible. The Bible can be an instruction book for nation building. But that's what we want to do as black Americans with knowledge. But compared to what we talk about America, and America it's not that it's a brand new country, or it's not that it's an antiquity country. It's only probably 400. I think it's actually only, as America, separatist nation from Europe, it's probably only 200 years. But the whole concept of Caucasian people in a country in the Western Hemisphere, that's about 400, 500 years. So America as a concept nation is not antiquity, but America originates from antiquity civilizations. It's a continuation, a genealogy, antiquity, chronicle of intelligence going back to what they call Africa, going back further when you start talking about the originating of recorded civilizations, the early years of what is called Kemet. So America has how can I say that? America can be traced or has the characteristics of antiquity, right? So they're a nation on the planet with a history. So they're already established. They have borders. They are constantly trying to protect their borders from within the country, from outside of the country. America is a Christianity country. Their book of religion is the Bible. But what I found very confusing is that if you do go to the Bible, and they call it a town, but we just going to generalize and say a nation. One of the nations in the Bible was destroyed because of homosexuality. So again, it's about positioning. If you knew where the money was tomorrow, then you would know where to put your money today. So why, brothers and sisters, would they use this black man? Well, we know why they used, as far as a black man, why they used him. But why would they pass same-sex marriages as legal? Now, that's a generalizing. I don't really know the specifics, but I'm just generalizing. We could probably ask the computer, but again, but why would they use the presidency, the office of president of America? Why would they use that position to implement same-sex marriages as legal? Right? When the Bible clearly tells us that a nation was destroyed, people were destroyed because of that filth. That's real powerful, right? So then you start talking about, well, look, if we destroy America, well, I don't know. That's real powerful, though. Something to think about. Okay. So Judah is the lawgiver. Judah is the lawgiver. It's a devil country, America. The devil is anti-law. So if we destroy the lawgiver, Judah, then as a devil in American society, we can progress to a certain point. Because again, the only argument that we're dealing with in 2024 and beyond is that the devil and God, Allah, had an agreement that Allah had condemned the devil to the hellfire, but God gave the devil power to take all black people to hell that would go to hell with them. So that's all we're really seeing, brothers and sisters. You hear the word God came. We know the truth. We deny the truth. And we follow a devil. And we say we are good. And we are not good. The devil is just to get you to go to hell with them. And understand now, is Judah is the lawgiver for the black people of the planet. So if we destroy the lawgiver, then the black people on the planet won't really have no guidance to save themselves from the hellfire. And that's it. If I'm wicked and evil and I can't go to the amusement park, But you about to go in and have a good time and everything. It's rides and the music. You about to have fun, eat hot dogs and cotton candy. But I can't go. I can't get in. Well, then what? The only way I'm going to have some type of enjoyment if I can get you not to go in. You understand? And not only can I get you not to go in, but I make you realize that you done lost everything. You in black skin. As a black man, it's a black woman. What? Now you trapped outside. You done did this to yourself. The scriptures say we do it. God has done nothing to us. God then came to us. Then set us free. Then got these Caucasian people that do all types of crazy killing themselves. You wonder how it's possible. It's only possible because God. But now you outside with the devil and you realize you done lost it all. And you in black skin. And they sitting there laughing at you. But they in pale skin, brothers and sisters. A certain type of filth. So, chattel slavery was the implementation to destroy the lawgiver. We could just look at it like this, brother. As a Muslim, I'm Muslim. Now, I wish I could write that in Arabic. I probably could find it. Let me see more. Let me see if I can. I think I have a dictionary right here, right? Let me see if I can see what it is in Arabic. I say that because we talk about Kemet. Then we talk about the Kaaba. Then we might say Ptah. We might say Amun. Correct. So those are very powerful, strong. That's a strong vernacular. But then we say we Muslim, right? So when you say Muslim and you say Kaaba and you say Kemet, they don't have, like, you know, intuitively we can just hear that those are not the same type of language. Because we want to say that, remember now, and then again, when I said, we were talking about Asar, and Offset, and I was saying how that they were Muslim. But when you say Muslim and you say Asar and Offset, you can tell that these words right here have a certain type of originality. That's antiquity. But then we say Muslim, right? That's a totally separate region or a separate type of language. Like we can hear that and see that. So let's hear it in Arabic, because I was saying that Asar and Offset are really the Muslims of their civilization, how we as Cometians and black people on the planet are supposed to be living. So there is a word that represents Muslim and Cometian language, right? But so just to understand, because we still talking about Islam. Like when you say Asar, I said in Islam, you still have the ISLA, right? So that's almost getting us there, right? Right? So it's just to make sense of it. But let's see what it says a Muslim is, or how to spell it. Muslima, so that's a M, Muslima, 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 Muslim, Muslim. Okay, they say it's spelled just how it sounds too, right? So it's Muslim, Mus. We got to look at that dictionary a little bit separate now, how they got that, right? Because they talking about this. So it's Muslim. Muslim. So you say Muslim, 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 Muslim. All said is Muslim. Okay, when you say it like that, right? Oh, that's powerful. Like if you can hear that spirit, right? So how I just like, if we just heard that, if we go back in antiquity, that's a brother that has knowledge of Allah, right? And he telling these brothers in Kemet that are looking at the history of Asar, he might be seeing the hieroglyphs, and he's saying, no, 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 no. Asar and Aset are Muslim, right? And so it's just so again, because look now, when we talk about the pyramids, then you have the Red Sea, then you have the Kaaba. What we have to understand is that when God say put on sackcloth and ashes, at the same time God say that we will be in silk, the fineries, right? So it's just humility. Humility, right? Compared to, well, it's nothing wrong. Well, you don't want to be prodigal, glitter, and extravagance. But, you know, I mean, if you like to dress up and wear gold and all of that, I mean, God says there's nothing wrong with that. If you're in righteousness, I say that because, you know, it's one thing for my brother, when you talking about Kemet, to profess himself in his beauty, where right here I'm in humility. So things, knowledge can get lost, right? And we can, this is the straight path, then we can stray from that path into the hellfire. But if I'm on the straight path, then I'm never lost. And I come to a point where we're in the hellfire and you don't have no knowledge of Asar and Aset. But you're talking about thousands of years. Thousands of years have passed. So now you living in the hellfire, going to the hellfire. And here I am with knowledge, and I say Muslim, Asar, Aset, or Muslim. You talking about Asar and Aset, a god, or some type of animal deity. Animal deity. Right? They got Asar and Aset. They got Asar. They got the black man cut up in 100 million pieces with a black woman looking for his penis. Right? Now, I'm not saying that again. It's only okay, I'm still trying to learn how to do this thing, right? It's only in American society. American society. Where it's the introduction of perversity. Perversity. Right? What I call the skull and crossbones. Crossbones. What they call death. It's not death for me and you, brothers and sisters. If we are in righteousness, it's death for the devil. So when you start talking about like, I mean, you know, to speak about the private things of a relationship with your wife, that's not perversity, right? But it's just because we are amongst strangers. And that's a very good word, strangers. something real, that's really, and that comes from the Bible, right? Why not we just say they strangers? Okay. Judah is the lawgiver. So the attack on Black America in such a wicked way, right? Like, it's just such a very wicked way how they are removing Black Americans from the planet, beginning with chattel slavery and the effort. Because there is nothing else, brothers and sisters. I just had these devils, because there is nothing else, brothers and sisters. Again, if I'm in pale skin and I'm condemned to the hellfire, there is no salvation for me. I have only built hell for myself on this planet to get rid of Judah. You get rid of Judah, and the rest of black people will fall by the wayside. Okay. So we have to progress with intelligence. Math analysis. Math analysis. Math so difficult. Math so difficult. Difficult. It makes life easy. And look at this, brothers and sisters. I just seen this word right here, difficult. Difficult, right? A difference, a culture, right? Organization. If we say difference is math, remember it's a number line. You got point x1, you got point x2. The difference, x2 minus x1, is progression. The change in x, this is mathematics. So it's a difference, culture, or cult, or organization, which goes back again to just the importance of mathematics and understanding what's really good to understand what's going on, right? Oh, I have my brother. We got my one brother. He in the Nation of Islam under the leadership of Minister Louis Farrakhan. And he read a powerful scripture from the Quran. And it said, I read it all the time, but like, again, it's communication. I just read it in the Proverbs. It's in the book of Proverbs. The book of Proverbs says that conversation, it's in the book of Proverbs, it's just real powerful. He said conversation leads to conclusion. The Bible don't say it like that, but it's in book of Proverbs. I don't know specifically which verse, but it says something like conversation leads to a conclusion. Oh, that's powerful. So I read this scripture all the time. The Holy Quran says, and if you are in doubt about the resurrection, look at what this black man telling me and you now. I'm trying to tell you we don't have no knowledge. The Holy Quran says that if you are in doubt about the resurrection, then surely we created you from a clot. Then we shaped you in the womb of the black woman. And then we clothed you with flesh. And then we brought you forth into the world. I wish I could get to that scripture, right? I don't think I need to read it. I think you need to find it in the Quran. And you need to read it for yourself to understand really what's going on. Woo! Oh, that thing is just powerful. It's really, really, really powerful. I just found that. Let me say it to you one more time. Surely, if you are in doubt about the resurrection, again now, if you knew that when you die, you go into the hellfire. If you knew that, you don't believe that. Because the devil then spent hundreds of years to get that out of your mind. The devil has spent hundreds of years to make Judah not have no knowledge of nothing. So if you don't have no knowledge that you are resurrected from the grave and God will hold you accountable for your actions, compared to paradise, it's just a real powerful scripture. So again, my contact information is research publishing media at gmail.com. I also want to put up here Law School of Mathematics. The Law School of Mathematics. This is actually very good also. Really, brothers and sisters, I'm doing all of this just to get you to understand that if you're trying to learn math, you're in college, you need someone to help, a counselor to guide you academically, socially. How are you going to position yourself with your life to get finance? You need finance. That could be corporate slave. You could be a slave to your own business, right? But whatever you choose to do, Dr. Tutor, a Law School of Mathematics, we stress first, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then math analysis. And as young people, we have to begin to learn how to pay our own way. Now, again, you know, we want to be skeptical of free things, like when somebody give you something, right? And then the Bible got rules with how you approach like a gift. But no, we want it for free. I mean, I'm not going to front. I want a free book, a free house, a free car, right? But we want to look at the hand that's giving us those things, right? We want to make sure God is giving it to us. But on certain levels, brothers and sisters, save up $10, $15, go to the store and buy the algebra book. If you go to the public library, right, you got to deal with the devil at the library to get the book. Then you're trying to better yourself. They're going to hot you up. The listener, right, he going to assume that position where that sword, that flaming sword follow them. So they're going to suffer and try to create suffering. So let's buy the book, right? Buy the book. Start reading the book, learning the book, math analysis. Put your brain back together. So that's what Mr. Sharia focuses on, to help our young black brothers and sisters get their mind correct. It's just really math analysis. And so again, a lot of times we are fluent, but Mr. Sharia is Muslim, and so it's a lot of things when you say you're a black man or a black woman, and you ain't gonna necessarily say that you're going to get out here and start making, which you should, but you saying, well, damn, I got children. I want to make sure they're safe when I'm no longer here, right? So let me contact Mr. Sharia, see what's going on, right? You still going, it's still going to be a devil, right? So you send them to the public schools, right? Like, that don't even make no sense. You send them to the public schools, you got Caucasian females that are dumb, ignorant at every level, teaching your young black child to when you pass on in the grave, they 30 and 40 years old, doing nothing, homeless, don't know how to read and write, don't know what's good. Okay, so that's Dr. Tutor. Dr. Tutor. We're Zoom available. We also have something called the Leadership Conference. The Leadership Conference is also, again, How do you provide leadership to the black people in America, black people in America, black people across the planet? We all need guidance now, right? Again, we talk about a transgender. We got hit with the transgender bomb. It was a transgender atomic bomb. Transgender atomic bomb. Transgender atomic bomb. It started with the brother, we got hit with this transgender atomic bomb. And because of no guidance, only the 5%, if you look at us now, we are very crazy. We also got hit with a crack bomb. When I say crack, I mean crack cocaine. We got hit with that crack bomb, right? And without correct guidance, if you look at us now, 2024, completely crazy. We got hit with a gang bomb. The gang bomb. We were always, as black men, as young black men, we would always group together. And initially, well, I don't know if you go back to the 50s and the 40s, I mean, you know, you do have, I don't know if you would have a black man shoot you, like a black man in the 40s and the 30s or the 50s. For that black man to have a pistol to shoot you, that probably would be a black man from the military. But I do believe that the black man would cut you with a knife now. And that might go all the way back to plantation slavery. But you don't really have, now you do have black men that will cut you in the 20s and the 30s now. But it's not, I'm not going to say like commercial where we just carrying a knife and we cutting black men. It's more or less going to be just a fight, fist, if we're even fighting each other. Now as children, we'll get into a scuffle, right? But is that young black man, he 13, 14, is he really going to cut you in the 30s with a knife? No, that had to be like a totally separate, unusual circumstance. But now the gangs, how they give it to us, it started in California. And I always remember, right, you know, being someone in the hip hop culture. When you talk about New York, you know, New York was whenever you go to regardless of whatever the media give you, whenever you go to New York, it's still gonna be love and the Harlem Renaissance. And that's what I always loved about New York, was that even in what the devil give you, how we are as black men, we supposed to be killing each other. And I'm not saying that's not going on. We have disagreements. Sometimes the disagreements leads to violence where a gun is involved. Right? But during that time period, I always seen that was kind of crazy that, well, I don't know the reasons. I can't say just because of a color, but I was like, those brothers in California that are in what they call these gangs and they're killing each other because of a color, I was like, that's kind of severe. Like, you know, I was like, that's real severe. Like that's a real live beast. That's you know, I'm glad that, well, I ain't gonna say I'm glad that, but I was like, that's a real live beast when you got to worry about somebody killing you like indiscriminately, how they give it to us. But that was in the 90s now, the early 90s. But now that has swept across the country, America. And so now if you look at us now, and it's just real horrible. Now we are coming to a time period because so many people are crying for peace. And again, the devil can only do so much wickedness until, you know, even a black man in filth, he'll look at himself and say, no, I'm filthy. I need to stop, right? So we got hit with all of this, the transgender bomb, the crack bomb, the gang bomb. For what? Judah is the lawgiver lawgiver, right? So if you destroy Judah, Black America, right, and the planet no longer has a lawgiver, then the devil can run rampant. And this is what has happened. Okay, I just seen something also. When we talk about the destruction of Black America, right? What is it? Genesis chapter 28, verse 48. Until we are destroyed. So Black America is destroyed. We are destroyed. So this is what we're doing. We are trying to save ourselves. Save ourselves from destruction. I think I said that incorrectly. We're already destroyed. So we're trying to not save ourselves. We're trying to I would say put ourselves back together. I don't even know, but we have to understand, this is what we have to understand. Now, so many of us in Black America, I'm not going to say we are righteous. We do have righteous Black Americans. But a lot of Black people have financial success. And again, one of the ways they attack us to destroy us, but again, it's only to destroy Judah, the lawgiver, One of the ways is financially. So you have a lot of Black people that are financially successful, but those are Black people that what we call 85% poison animal eaters. Poison animal eaters. Pork, pig, right? If you don't eat no pig, you still buying your meat from like Walmart, Kroger's, right? God say don't eat no meat where that animal has been slaughtered in some strange god. They slaughtering these like Tyson and Purdue. These are Caucasian-owned corporations. They're slaughtering these chickens and these cows in the name of a devil. God say don't eat that meat. But we still eat that meat instead of going to what they call halal. You have people that are Muslim where they slaughter the animal in the name of God. Right? So you have to go to these places to get your animal flesh. Right? So that's actually very beautiful for you and your development, because you first have to find where these places are. So until you find where they are, you can't eat no meat from them grocery stores. Then God said stop eating the meat. Right? So then you say, well, listen, Fatiha, what about the vegetables? Well, I thought about that, right? It's really all bad, right? Because they poisoning all the food in the grocery stores, all food in grocery stores, all the food is being poisoned in the grocery stores. I read something where they're saying now they're finding when people pass on into the grave, they're finding plastic in their brains. Now again, we have to understand when they give us these studies, unless they say that we are specifically talking about Black people, they're talking about the Caucasian male. Caucasian male. See, you have to really understand, brothers and sisters, we blessed as Black people. They doing this to themselves. Jewish people control all of this, brother. This is what I'm trying to tell you. The Caucasian Jew called the Caucasian, he call him a goyim. You can just hear that, how that sound. You goyim. That's worse than calling a Black man an N. Stinking ass goyim. They talking to the Caucasian male, Joe Biden and Bill Clinton, Ronald Reagan. But so when they give you these studies about what's going on. They're not talking about black people unless they say black people. They talking about the Caucasian male. They saying they're finding plastic in the Caucasian male's brain. I say that because the water is real bad. Yo, it's actually a severe problem with the water. And it don't matter the plastic. They got the water in plastic. The water sits in plastic. But the reason why God say specifically for animal flesh is because the animal has blood. And I think we talk about disease and filth. It's a certain way you handle blood as far as like the veins of an animal. So you can't have a devil slaughtering, dealing with blood, with the filth of the devil. So until you find somewhere where you can get that meat that's being slaughtered correctly, right, you got to eat them vegetables and let all that processed food go, right? Like the box pizzas and the box dinners. And so that's actually very powerful to take. This is what I'm trying to tell you, brothers and sisters, right? To get that flower to grow, to bust up through that dirt, for it to take root, where it could just breathe that fresh air and it start growing, right? So that's going from 85% to 5%, right? Okay. So there's so much to speak on. Again, let me just make sure my contact information is Research Publishing Media. Again, I'm stressing that because, again, we're trying to move as the education progresses now. Research Publishing Media at gmail.com. Now, as we progress the Research Library Corporation, I took a bad hit. I took a real bad hit, brother. Again, we talk about Robin Hood. We talk about the stock market. What's really good? The stock market. Where the money at? Where the money is on the stock market. That's where the money is. The money is on the stock market. So you might hear me talk about the stock market. And so then I will reference. Now, I always understand a lot of times now, when you want to invest on the stock market with a company, say you like a company. What's a company I like? Again, I like Adobe. Adobe is a software company. So again, as Black Americans, we need a financial base. We need some finance coming in. I think one of the greatest things in the world is when, we was doing music. We was making so much finance. We had finance coming in. So say you got finance coming in from music, right? And you take that finance and you divert it to a grocery store. And the grocery store is initially not going to be profitable because it takes a little bit of time. But you got so much money coming, and I'm just picking on music, but we were making a lot of money from music. You got so much finance coming in from music that you take it and you divert it to a grocery store where you can do 3 and 4 years of not being profitable. Right? And I also seen it with charity. Instead of asking poor people, we are poor people. Now, charity is a good way to alleviate sin. But to correctly do charity, you have to have a profitable business, profitable, I might not be spelling that correctly, business. Where you got finances coming in and you take 5-10% and you divert it to charity. And you get your charity to grow like a flower, like a tree. This is a tree. And you keep feeding it, but you're making so much finance, you're making so much profit. So we need financial basis. And Adobe, one of the ways to do that is with a software company. Software. Yeah, you can go work for Google if you at that level and they pay you 100,000. But Google is worth 100 billion. Google is worth 100 billion. You only getting paid 100,000. You can use 100 billion to make charity. So Adobe makes what? I think Adobe cleared 16 billion a year. So how do we create that? Well, it's a software company. And if you read their report, their last earnings report, he'll just straight give it to you how they do it. Okay, so in talking about the stock market, Adobe costs, I think Adobe right now is at $500 a share, $495 a share. Well, realistically, coming from off the street, you're not going to put no $500 on no Adobe one share for you to lose it, right? But no, you can put $10 on it. Just see what it's going to do. It can go up or it can go down. You ain't going to make a whole lot of money, but you can start to learn about what's going on. So they call this fractional shares. So before I had any knowledge, I used to reference a good company that you should put your money with is Robinhood. Robinhood is a company, an internet brokerage company, where you open an account with Robinhood and you don't have to buy the entire share. You can take what they call fractional shares, $5 or $10. Robinhood lets you get on it with $1. You can take $1 and invest in Adobe. So, brothers and sisters, you have to open an account. And what Adobe just did to me is discrimination. Brothers and sisters, yo, Fatiha, Sharia account. Brothers and sisters, they closed my account. They just closed my account. They said because of recent, look at what they said now. Recent trading activities. It was actually very personal how they did this. They said my recent trading activities, but I had no recent trading activities. Like, that's real crazy, right? But look at the crazy part about it now. Now look at how they did it now. Again, we talk about realized, unrealized gain. I don't think I ever got to explain what this was. You got a realized gain or unrealized gain. Unrealized gain is really where the money is also. You buy a stock for $10. Say it dropped to $5. Well, you done lost $5 on your investment, but you haven't sold it. You keep it. And if you listen to your financial advisor, he'll tell you don't sell. Because eventually it's going to go back up, right? But if you sell it, so if you don't sell, let's go back to this. If you don't sell, you done lost $5. That's called an unrealized gain. Unrealized gain. Right? Well, you done lost $5 on your portfolio, but you still have the stock. You just done lost $5 from your stock. But if you purchased the stock at $10, it went down to $5, and then you sell it for $5, what it's worth, you would have lost $5 from your portfolio. Say you had $100 in your portfolio. If your portfolio is now worth $95, right? But that's unrealized. Because if the $5 stock, if it go up to $15, now your portfolio is worth $105. But that's still unrealized. That means you haven't cashed out. But if your stock is at $10 and it goes to $5 and you sell it, then that's called realized. And you done actually lost $5. So again, when I first started listening to my financial advisor, you always make sure that you sell more than green. They give you just colors. It be green. Green is where you done made money. Red is when you done lost money. So you sell more green than red. So look at what Robinhood did now. I had a couple penny stocks that I was looking at. I had Goro. Goro was at 51 cents. It dropped down to, what Goro dropped down to, I think Goro might be at 16 cents. Right, so I lost about, I didn't have a lot of money. I had a lot of shares because we were talking about volume. This is when we were studying volume. We were studying volume, like 1 or 2 shares compared to 100 shares, compared to like 10,000 shares. So I was studying volume with the stock market. So Goro, I had about 2,000 shares of Goro, but it was a penny stock, so it wasn't that bad, right? But when it dropped to 16 cents with the earnings report, I think I had lost about $400. That was unrealized. That's an unrealized gain. So I just had to be patient however long that take. That might take 1 or 2 years. I don't even know. But that was $400. Then I had another stock, MTNB. I don't know how I like this stock. I think it might have been volatile initially. But I think I brought MTNB. It was at 31 cents. Right? It dropped down to like 18 cents. And then they did a stock split. Right? Where I had like about 80 shares at like $5 a share. I think my average cost was $5 a share, right? Yo. Then they came out with an earnings report where whatever they was coming out with, I finally understood their report, right? They just asked, it was just some foolishness, right? But they dropped from $5 to like, I think it's at 50 cents right now, right? I had never had this before in my life, right? But like I had never had this. I had seen companies do, like we had this one company. I could never realize what it was. It's called AM. I think it's AMLX. Yo, they went from $20 to $2. And they got something called a dead cat bounce. Dead cat bounce. You can make a lot of money with the dead cat bounce too. Now this is when I was like, I'm getting a little bit better as an investor. A dead cat bounce. Okay, so we talk about AMLX. AMLX. AMLX was doing real good. They had went up. They was at like $20. Then they had, with pharmaceutical companies, if they doing these clinical tests, right? These are companies, like you got something like Eli Lilly that's been around. You got Pfizer, you got Johnson & Johnson. Well, these companies, these pharmaceutical companies or chemical companies, they started out, brothers and sisters, as penny stocks. They was only $1. They was 50 cents. Eli Lilly is at, $900 right now. Crushing it. So AMLX was one of them companies that was doing it, right? But they claimed, like one of their reports, it failed. Whatever they was working on, it set them back. Yo, that thing dropped. It dropped to $2. So then what you have is a dead cat bounce. So the stock then died, and from my understanding, but then it'll go back up. Right? So if you catch it right here, all you gotta do is be patient and look. that ticker symbol, the price will go $3, $2.50, $2.25, $2.10, right? Then it'll start messing around at $2.10. So it's at $2.10. Look, it was at $20. It dropped down to $2.10. Then it started messing around $2.10, $2.15. You got to be real patient though, because sometimes that thing, you'll get it wrong and it'll keep dropping. But a dead cat bounce is if it dropped to like $2.10 and then it go back up to about $5. I'm talking about just like that. Like this is at 9:30. This is at 9:50 a.m. That's only 20 minutes. So if you brought 100, say you brought 1,000 shares, that's $2,010. How much is it? Let me see something. No, that's 2,100. So you brought 1,000 shares it was at $20, brothers and sisters. From some type of report that came out, it dropped to $2.10. Then everybody see it like, oh, a good buying opportunity. You buy 1,000 shares, it go up $3. That's $3 in 20 minutes. That's $3,000 what you done made. That's called a dead cat bounce. That happens all the time, brothers and sisters. So that's why I say when the stock market is a two-edged sword, it's all kinds of ways you can get money. All kinds of ways you can get money. Where the money at? The money on the stock market. Look at CrowdStrike. I seen CrowdStrike. But my financial advisor said that, that's why a lot of times it's what God tell you too, right? CrowdStrike was at 400. It went down to I think it went down to 200. Right now it's at like 300. But look, and listen to my financial advisor. Like, would you really want to mess with a company? Even though you may remember now, God always, listen what God say now. God say, it's things that make you wealthy in the present, but in the long term it make you poor. And it's things that make you poor in the present, and long term it make you wealthy. So coming from my financial advisors, like his environment, I could see why he was like, why would you even want to mess with a company? Like, again, we're talking long term. So, like, why would you, want to mess with a company that just had a problem where it dropped it? But it's at 300 now, and it's still going. So, if you would have brought it 200, say you bought 10 shares, you would have made $1,000. Right? That's like a hustle. So, let's understand. Goro, it went from 50 cent, 51 cent, to like 18 cent. I had MTNB. MTNB went from $5. You should read their earnings report. What that devil say. It's at 50 cent right now. I think I lost $700 on them. But that's unrealized. And always understand now, my name is Mr. Sharia. Sharia is not Watkins. It's not it's not Johnson. It's not Williams. Right now, I'm not picking, right? It's just, that's just not what it is. Not none of them. It's Sharia. My first name is Fatiha. Right? So you talking about this black man named Mr. Sharia, right? So this is called an unrealized gain. Okay. So these two was in the toilet severely. And I wasn't, I was looking at penny stock and I was saying, I like both of these companies. Okay. But this was the backbreaker. Then we got the other one, Super Microcomputer. Yo, so I told you the story, right? Super Microcomputer. I think it was at 640. I had it at 640. It went down to about 560. Then it had an earnings report where it went up to 720. in like 2 minutes, and then it dropped down to 387. Right, so we have been suffering with SMCI at the 387, and then it did a stock split where they gave you 10 shares for every share. So I ended up with like 40 shares. So we were struggling right here. I think it was at $44. Right? So let's understand, right? We're talking about Robinhood, Robinhood.com. Robinhood.com. This is an internet brokerage company where you can invest in the stock market on the internet, dealing with this company right here. And again, they let you buy what they call fractional shares. So if you're talking about SMCI, you don't have to spend the total $640. You can just buy $10 worth. So this is what they did, right? SMCI, I'll never forget, SMCI went up to $50 while I had made $150. Like through all the madness, it going up to $720, it dropping to $387, listening to my financial advisor, don't sell, don't sell, don't sell. So now we have went back up to $50. And look, now this is what the graph looked like. So this is where it is right now, brothers and sisters. And it's a profitable company. They messing with NVDA. One of their contracts is NVIDIA. They a $30 billion company. Right? They gonna make some money. But it went up to $50. But then they had some they got some books problems. When we say books, we mean financial reporting problems. So they say. You gotta always understand now, the hustle is to stain these companies to get the stock price to drop, where you can get in and buy a whole bunch of shares and it's gonna go up real quick, right? They do it all the time with Microsoft and Google. Amazon stay in legal trouble with the government, right? To get that price to drop. Listen, it's $1 billion company. So they talking about their financial reporting, something shady with their financial. I mean, you got to really look at what they saying, right? But it's just to stain the company. So look, it was at $50, right? I was up 150. I sat there and seen it too. And I was like, nah, I ain't going to sell. I'm just going to keep it because I seen it's a profitable company. Where I didn't mess up, but I had too much money involved. Again, financial advisor only put 5%. Only put 5% of your investment portfolio. So I had 10%. That's what I had. I had 10%. It was still, and when you start learning the hustle, it's just, I still had too much money on it. But the people that they was, okay, so SMCI, they had hired some outside financial advisors, people that actually look at your business financially. They quit. They said that they had a disagreement. So I looked at it from both sides, right? So really what I'm saying, brothers and sisters, listen, SMCI made so much money. They went from 200 to 1,000 a share. Their price was $1,100 a share. They made so much money in that time period. So I was like, nah, they're not gonna let nobody know. Like, you want to report what you making, but like you want to report that to your people that's investing. But no, some outside people, you're not gonna let people really know how much money. No, that's not even intelligent. Again, in the Bible say the brother from Judah, he let the brother come in, he showed them everything they had. That brother came back and robbed them and destroyed Judah. So I seen it from that perspective, but regardless of how I seen it, listen, right? It went from $50 to $32, right? What? So then it did this is not necessarily a dead cat bounce, but it's sort of kind of, but look now. So then I brought some more shares at $32 because look, when it dropped like that, it's something called overbuying or oversold. people can overbuy a stock. That's when the stock price just go way up and you don't know why. People just buy. Like the brothers say, the stock market is a drama queen. So if it's going up, it could be overbought where people just buy it out crazy, right? Or they do it the same way, it could be oversold. So bad news, right? It just dropped real crazy and people oversell. Always understand now they on the run, right? And so it's a hoarding of the wealth. But again, when you start understanding, you just really don't want to sell. You want to be patient and hold on to what you have. So look at what happened though. It dropped to $32. I was like, well, look, it's going to go back up. And it did go back up. It went from $32 to $38. Right? So look, that's $6. So if you just was patient and not even involved in it, you could have bought it at $32. It would say, so you'd have made, how many shares? If you bought 10 shares, how many shares would you have bought? That's $320. That's just 10 shares. You'd have made $60, right? That's going to pay a bill. That's going to pay your internet bill, your phone bill, your electricity bill. We talking about, and that's like an hour, right? But I didn't sell, but I decreased what they call dollar cost averaging. So I think my price with SMCI was $47. So I brought a couple of shares. It dropped it down to $43. That's actually very good about the stock market when you dollar cost average. But what happened, brothers and sisters, is what I'm still learning. I'm still kind of impatient because it's just finance, right? We just like to make money, brothers and sisters. But it went from $32 to $38. Then it dropped back down to $33, right? Then the earnings report, it went to $22. So that's not, so if I just would have just completely waited, then I could have bought a lot of shares for $22. It would have dropped that $47 price into the 30s. So that's the hustle, right? But this is what Robinhood did. Robinhood.com, Robinhood.com. This is what they did. So it dropped to $27. And then we had the presidential election. And I didn't know that during presidential election time, after the president's elected, stock market go up real crazy. And then we got Mr. Trump or President Trump as the president. So you know they love him. So it's going to really go up. But when SMCI was at $27, I was like $1,500 in the hole with SMCI. So let's look at it now. Again, we got an account with Robinhood.com. The whole time now we dealing with racism and discrimination, but you know, you get tired of just reporting them types of things. So we just understand we second-class citizens. But now I done lost $400 on a company that I got to keep. I got to keep it. What is it, Goro? I done lost $700 on a company. I got to keep it. I'm not going to lose what? I got to go up. And then I just lost $1,500 on SMCI. And then I had another company, CL. Then I just had like $300 losses. I was waiting for these stocks to go. That's not really bad, 300. Like the only thing that's really bad is $1,500. But that's with SMCI. So I wasn't really, you know, you done lost $1,500. But I was like, it's going to eventually go up. Because if you look at SMCI now, it went from $22 to $27. And then I had another one, Elf. I kind of like Elf. They're a cosmetics company. They kind of like in the toilet too, right? I think their price is at $109. I think it went up to like $117. They just had an earnings report. They real profitable, but they done been oversold. They graph look real good. But again, you got to understand that. So I was down $300 with them too, right? But I wasn't really worried about these because they were just solid companies that was going to go up. But in the collective, you talking about $2,500. I done lost unrealized gain. Well, what Robinhood.com did was they sent me an email and they said, due to recent activity, look at what they say now, recent activity with your account, we are closing your account. Closed it. So when they closed my account, look at what they did, brothers and sisters. They sold all my stock at whatever price it was at. That's not even ethical. How are you going to sell a stock if you know the stock going to go up, but you're going to sell it at a loss? How is like, and then you closing the account for no reason? No, they have a reason. They say recent activity. But my only recent activity was I brought some more stock. Oh, it's just, so what I say, the reason why I don't like it, I really don't like it, it's not because I'm black and they did it. I mean, I'm not saying they did it because of, like, they discriminated against me. Like, they discriminated against my account. Now, you can say because I was black, yeah, that might be it. You can say because I'm Muslim, yeah, that might be it. But the reason why they discriminated against my account was because I was poor. And I had built a certain amount of wealth in my poverty. That's the only reason. That's why it's not like, you know, I feel bad as far as my stock investing skills, because I could have sold Goro. I sat there and seen Goro at 51 cents. I sat there and seen it. So I was like, I should sell it, right? Just something inside me was like, I should just sell it. And, you know, I think I would have made like $50. I was like, nah, because I see it at $2. And it still can go up to $2. I was like, nah, just hold it, right? You know, I'm not gonna play that hustle flipping and all that. You get tired of that. Now with MTNB, there's nothing I could have done with that. From the set, I was already losing. But I was only losing like, what, $10, $15. It was only this recent report where it dropped from $5 to 50 cents, where I had lost, I think I had lost 700. But I was just going to keep it and forget about it. The SMCI I wasn't really worried about, right? But in everything that was going on from poverty, I started with my stimulus. I had organized and just listened, and so I was planning my future. And you talking about just some serious hatred. So it was an attack because I'm poor. It was an attack on my poverty. So they just closed my account. And then they got something called arbitrary closure. Like they can hide that in the terms and agreements, where they can close your account for no reason. I don't think specifically for no reason. I think they have to have a reason. Well, with Robinhood, they say, if you violate account activities. So but that's not what it is. They closed my account just to put me in a certain type of poverty. The listener. So I say that because that's now a reality. And I always, like, when you start agreeing, like when you start opening these accounts and you read the agreements and you understand, like I always knew that they could just close, like they could discriminate and close the account. Like I always knew that. But I was like, God is not going to, there's no way if, like, listen, I'm not doing nothing illegal with the account. For them to close the account, it would have to be discrimination. So I always knew that. So that's where we are now. But I say that because, again, I'm not a stock market analyst. I'm not giving stock market advice. What I'm doing is I'm letting the people know we ain't got no money. We need finances to progress. Right, you separate from the devil. You get in conversation with God. God put a couple dollars in your pocket for you to progress for your wife and your children. So now we have a new reality where these people can shut down your account at any time. So now we have to learn how to invest, make investments with that in mind. We have to incorporate that into how we invest. Right? So, I just thought that was real shitty though. Yeah, that was like again, I'm specifically speaking, not from the black man, black woman perspective. Not 'cause I'm a Muslim. I'm talking about like to make me poor. That's like an attack on my damn family. Like, damn, that's some heavy duty, that's some serious hatred. Okay, but I wanted to make a reference to that, Robinhood.com, and that could be any platform, right? We don't own these platforms, and again, how do we create something for us like a stock market, right? Where we have corporations and companies, black owned, and we have a way where we can invest with our own businesses and how no manipulation and inside, how God say to do it. I think it's called trading. So I wanted to make a reference to that. That's a serious setback. So I had a realized gain where I took that loss. Right? Talking about some damn trauma and just dealing with it. Okay. So, the Research Library Corporation, Research Library Corporation. I don't think we're going to talk about the stock market, but what's really good, okay, so what happened, brothers and sisters, is that I think we were talking about Dr. Tutor. Yeah, that's exactly what we were speaking on. So, again, with Dr. Tutor, I tutor or educate young people, and I had a couple recent math tests, and I did pretty good on my analysis test. I really thought I was gonna flunk it. Now I thought not that I was gonna flunk it. Now I say that again. Now I'm not no scholar in math analysis, and I don't even come to the table. Well, I can't say I don't come to the table with nothing but no, brother. I thought I was probably gonna flunk it, but I was gonna fight that thing. Right? I was going some points where the professor looking, he like, okay, yeah, he know this and this, right? But he's nothing. But I didn't flunk it. And so, I had a little chance. And I actually came off on certain points, but I took that test. I still was kind of skittick. I don't even know if that's a word, right? But I was kind of skittick in my mind. Because, again, I've been traumatized. I was traumatized with this one class. I was just... So we only got about an hour and a half to take the test. So you got to answer them questions, right? So we skittick, right? So that's the only thing I say with that. And I initially, when I initially approached the test, it's almost like claustrophobic. I think I could say claustrophobic, right? It'd be that pressure the pass got to get them answers right? So I felt a certain way with the test, and I did it kind of crazy. It wasn't smooth, and I struggled with the answers. But I wasn't impressed, but I felt good about just, its progression. Shit, I don't know nothing about no math analysis. I got a 400-year history of chattel slavery. So I'm just talking about I know the environment. I have the structure. Oh, this is where I'm a mathematician. I teach math analysis. This is where I'm going to be, inshallah, until I go in the grave. So I felt real good because I can read it now. Like, I can just read it and I understand it. I don't have to stutter with it. I don't have to look at it where I get headaches. I can just read it. And so now it's just understanding how to actually communicate. Because again, with math analysis, is how to communicate. Like, it's one thing to know what it is, like f of x equals x. Like, we know that. But do you really know it where you can write it right? It's a methodology. You have to write the methodology. You have to actually show the steps. Right? So that's just understanding what it is. But then, brothers and sisters, from the math analysis test, right, God giving me that understanding, right? We took I had a partial differential analysis. I had a quiz. And right now we're talking about function distribution. Distribution means, like, we talking about waves. Waves is just the travel in space. Again, we talking about a difference. So always understand now, you got a particle here at x1, particle at x2. Okay, first of all, where is this in space at x2? And the difference, it's a difference, a change in x. So all that's partial differential equations. So right now we're talking about the, what is it, Laplacian equation? Oh, I really like this, right? I really love this class. Oh, I love, like, it's between, like, I like calculus too, right? It's like, because I like computation. But that calculus, actually I love it all, brothers and sisters. Because I love algebra too, right? Especially when you talk about higher algebra. But that differential equations, it's just something about that motion, that velocity, and that acceleration, right? When you calculate that acceleration. Okay, hold on one second, brothers and sisters. Let me see something. I don't think I'm gonna have, let me see, I might can ride on the back of that for a little bit, right? I might can use that until we, okay. So we talk about acceleration. And acceleration, when you have the graph, you have a straight line, then you have acceleration, right? Then you can also have a flat line where it's not doing nothing. But it's acceleration. That thing just go up. And that's meters per second, which is equal to meters per second squared. So I had a differential equation, right? We were talking about the Laplacian operator. And with the Laplacian operator, we're just talking about a wave in space. It could be heat. It could be a particle. It just really, it describes motion. And the Laplacian operator is this symbol right here, right? So you might have, so we're looking at, it's just functions, the system activity, what is the system doing? So you're talking about a wave traveling through space. So we have equation, we dealing with the partial of, what is it, of a function with respect to time is equal to some constant. Then you have the Laplacian operator with the function, right? Now we say u, it could be u of x equals some number, right? It might be more than one variable, uxy equals some number. But when we talk about the Laplacian operator, we're talking about what he calls a circular membrane, just some type of circle. Remember, there's 2 dimensions, and it's vibrating. So when it vibrates, it creates a wave, right? So it's no longer x and y. It's polar coordinates, what they call polar coordinates. Polar means static. Now this is like theory. I don't know if this is how they would derive it, but this is how I kind of understand it. Polar is just static. Static is, again, electricity or particles. So when you talk about particles at the highest level, when it's like geometry, you're talking about angles. So when you say polar coordinates, we go from x and y XYZ to radius, the angle, which we call the Greek letter theta, and it's still time. So let me see if I can show it to you. You got X, Y, Z axis, right? But now you're talking about a radius, which is r, right? That creates an angle, which is theta, and then that's over time. Time can also be an axis, where you can have something like T, X, Y. Over time, these points change, right? So I got a test in this tomorrow, and I feel kind of good about it, right? I think the next step, you learn the methodology, how to solve it, and then you look at the experiments. Always understand now, you have to go back to the experiment, right? But we're moving so fast, right? We're just trying to get the grade to get up out of undergraduate school, where we can get to some point where we can start learning our discipline. But we have to get to the experiments, and the experiments will show you how these equations were developed. So when you talk about the Laplacian operator, you can have it where it's the X and Y coordinate, X, Y, which is the change in X squared, the change in the function plus the change in the function Y squared, that equals some number. I think it might equal, not I think, right? Well, that's with the equation, but this is the Laplacian operator. But when you change the polar coordinates, say a function u, this is 1 over r, the partial with respect to r, the partial with respect to u, the partial of u with respect to r, plus 1 over r squared, the partial squared of u with respect to the angle theta squared, right? So we're using this equation right here. Then a lot of times we set it equal to 0. When you see an equation equal 0, they call that homogeneous. Homogeneous when it's equal to 0. When you set equations equal to 0, that makes it easier to solve, because again, we don't have no knowledge of nothing. So we have to find a way where we can get it constructed, where we can at least find one solution, and then from that one solution, we can build on what the equation is. Okay, so I have a test in this tomorrow, brothers and sisters, and I'm just trying to get prepared. So what I want to do is I want to solve one of these problems for the viewers, and so we just understand what we're working with. And I like this. Like, I got a brother, right? I wish I could go to his YouTube channel to give him some advertising. But I got this brother from India. And I got like a lot of good brothers from India. If you go to my link, I have a LinkedIn business channel called Dr. Tutor. And if you go to this, LinkedIn is a social media platform. And I advertise Dr. Tutor on LinkedIn. I've shared some of his YouTube videos, and he's a doctor of probably physics and mathematics, and he does his thing like this, like he show you straight up what's going on, and I kind of like how he, like I like this, you know what I'm saying? I just, away from ignorance, we're actually learning what's going on. Okay, so we're gonna solve this problem, brothers and sisters. Now we're dealing with something called separation of variables, And I'm gonna solve the more difficult one just because I just like it. I like it. So we got this way of solving. If we don't know the whole thing, again, brothers and sisters, is what is this function? When you just, okay, let's take time out and breathe the air. When you start breathing the air, we understand that we're dealing with a sun in our heavens. Now, it ain't got to be the sun. You can just look at the moon. But both of them things are spherical. So when you start breathing the air, you know, and if they tell you like commercially it's atoms, well, you know the atoms are circular. God just tell you that. You know the atoms don't look like no tree. The atoms don't look like no plant. No, the atoms look like the sun. You talking about heat? Circular. Right? But you don't know what is it doing. You got to calculate all of that. Right? So then we're looking at motion. It's a change in motion. Right? The number line, the x-axis, from point A to point B, it's a difference. B minus A gives you the change in x. What is that change? We want to know what that is. So they got something that they came out with called separation of variables. And what that is, brothers and sisters, is that we don't know what their function is, but we can come out with variables. The change in x, the x-axis over time, the time axis. And how they do it is they say, well, it's real simple, brothers and sisters. They just say, well, look, we come out with two more functions that depend on them variables. So we had this function right here. That's dependent on two variables. That's complicated. But from the symmetry, remember now, I want to study, or we want to learn, we want to understand the symmetry of numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, they have a symmetry. 2 minus 1 is 1. 3 minus 2 is 1. 4 minus 3 is 1. But 4 minus 1 is 3. Right? But that's still symmetry there. But 3 minus 1 is 2. So where is the symmetry? But it's symmetry there. So I say that because when you talk about linear functions, a linear function is just a straight line. And linear functions, they have a certain type of characteristic to help us to understand. And so it's the linearity of a function that allows us to say function u of xt is equal to function x of x times t of t. And it's the symmetry of numbers. The symmetry of numbers that allows us to do this. And then also in certain elevated, what the scripture says, elevated places. It's not, this equality is not right and exact. It'll just be an assumption or an approximation. Approximation is a better word. Approximation. Well, we might be off by a couple decimals. Not a couple decimals, a couple decimal points. So we might be off by something like that. Which is not, I mean, you know, we want to be correct, right, and exact. But at the same time, we want to understand that it's just an approximation, because at that level of intelligence, we don't necessarily understand. But it's the symmetry of numbers that allows us to say that u of xt is equal to x of x, t of t. And this is what we want, because we can solve these straight up, where you can just create a variable. Okay, so let's listen to what the problem says. So it's a wave equation. It's a semicircle. He called this a circular membrane. This is an angle. This angle right here is pi. Pi is equal to 180 degrees, right? Pi is 3.14. It's an irrational number where it goes on forever, but we could just simplify 3.14. Again, that goes back to the approximation. And understand pi is the circumference divided by diameter is equal to pi. So you have, no matter what circle you have, small circle, big circle, medium circle, the diameter of the circle divided into the circumference is the actual circle, the diameter is what goes across the circle, and then the radius is half of the diameter. So you have diameter d divided by 2 is equal to the radius. And the circumference, you have to actually measure the circumference with like some type of string, unless you know the radius. Like you can create a circumference, and see, all that's theory. And that's when this is where I say I should be getting paid, so I'll be keeping them things. But it's just theory. And when you talk about chattel slavery, right? You got to come out with a radius. It's what you want to do. Don't wait for the slave master to tell you, well, what's your radius? How long do you want the diameter to be? Right? And then from those two things, well, I think it's what is it, pi r squared? Pi r squared is the area. So from the area, I had to think about that right quick, right? But just so we understand. But I think at some point you're going to have to know the circumference because you're talking about pi. So you do this with a string. I've actually did this experiment. I have it somewhere. I need to get to it. But again, I'm trying to wait till I actually get into my discipline, where we start looking at, again, these diseases and whatever we want to do, right? Okay. So pi is 3.14, and 3.14, this is radians. And really everything is measured in radians, and that's the rotation of the planet on its axis, as far as how the sun is shining, and it creates shadows, and that's how you measure radians. Or that's one way to measure radians. Okay, so we talking about they call this a membrane, a circular membrane. So we talking about a half circular membrane. So we talking about, when we talking about an angle, that's theta. Again, you talking about an angle. This is theta, that's 90 degrees. This is theta also, right here. So again, when I showed you the 45-degree angle, that's just x equals y, or f of x equals y. This is a 45-degree angle. Equals theta. Okay. So this is important because this gives us a boundary where theta is going to be greater than 0, less than pi. So it's a semicircle. What language? Semicircle. Right? That's one variable, theta. Remember now, we're using polar coordinates as radius, theta, time. We're not using x, y, t. We're using r or theta, t. The radius is bounded. What's the radius bounded? From 0 to a. And just time can be infinite. So we have a semicircle from 0 to pi. From 0 to pi, this is theta. You have a radius of r. Let me see if I can write this again. I'm so impatient, right? I just want to solve the problem. I love that junk. So this is pi, and this is 0, and you got theta, right? This is what theta is doing. And this line right here, brothers and sisters, that's the radius. So at certain time periods, t, the radius is changing. And over time, it gives this graph right here. And that's the boundary conditions. This is the actual wave equation. We're dealing with a wave equation. The wave equation is the partial squared of the function u with respect to t squared is equal to a constant squared times the Laplacian. This is a symbol. The Laplacian of u. And then they give you initial conditions or some more, not initial conditions. They give you more boundary conditions. We're going to apply the boundary. I'm not going to write it for sake of time, but we're going to apply the boundary. Well, I can give you a little taste, right? So they give you boundary conditions of how you want to construct the solution of your problem. So they say the partial of u with respect to r is equal to what? No. The partial of u with respect to r with the variables a of a, theta, and t is equal to 0. So you see how it's equal to 0? That's called homogeneous. And you make it homogeneous because it's very simple to solve. If you have x plus y equals 0, if you set it equal to 0, if you just subtract the y from both sides, then x equals negative y, and that's your solution, right? That's where, but you could have set it y equals an exponential, then you say pi lambda. That's very complicated to solve, right? Then it has to make sense. So if you subtract, so say we say x plus y equals the exponential of pi lambda. You subtract the exponential to both sides. So you have x plus y minus exponential pi lambda. They cancel. That's equal to 0. Is this true? Like if this exponential doesn't make x plus y true, then it's not a true statement. And then whatever you're trying to, I look at machinery, because we trying to build, that means whatever you're trying to build is going to crash. And we don't need no failures. You know, brothers and sisters, again, and talking about failures, I go back to that one. I don't know if you ever look, like if you talking about black consciousness, I know sometimes you'll see the cartoon where they had a Caucasian male. I think they even got him racing a black woman, right? It's like a 100-meter dash. But in his lane, he got like a smooth lane. But in the black woman lane, she got like barbed wire fences and she got to jump over crocodiles and all that, right? So I say that because, look, do you understand, brothers and sisters, that they just closed my account where I lost like about 3 G's for nothing? I really got a better understanding of that when I seen that, right? Like, you know, so the things that, like the obstacles, like how we have to live in this devil society. Let me give you another boundary condition. So you have the partial of u with respect to the radius, and they got radius 0, theta t equals 0. So again, we're setting it equal to 0, and we also make the variable 0 to make it real simple. Because 0 times anything is 0. So you're always going to have that as a solution. And then they also have it as u with respect to r. I think they, no. I'm talking about theta. Oh, that's a. Okay, no. Excuse me, brothers and sisters. I wrote that incorrectly. It's u, the partial of u with respect to the angle is r 0 theta equals 0. And then they go from u to theta. R theta equals pi, t equals 0. So here you see the boundary where theta is greater than 0, less than pi. We have right here the first boundary. The partial of u with respect to theta, theta equals 0. is equal to 0, and then we have theta equal pi equal to 0. So using these boundary conditions, we just have to solve this problem, brothers and sisters. I love this. When God actually starts showing you things, we got to solve this problem. This problem or this equation describes how you might have, it's actually a circular membrane. But we're not talking about the entire circle. Like I say, like when we were studying the ballistics from our brothers in Vietnam, once you learn that math, brothers, you can apply it to whatever. So we're looking at the vibration of a circular membrane, how it vibrates. But we're not looking at the entirety. Because if it was the entirety, we would say theta is greater than 0. This is 0. If you're talking about the entire angle, then it'd be less than 2 pi. This is 2 pi when you go a complete circle. But we're just looking at this part right here, the semicircle, from 0 to pi. And then right here is 2 pi. We're just looking at this part right here. And this is from this boundary condition right here, the partial of u with respect to theta at 0 and then at pi. So we have this equation determined from experiments. They had the membrane, they were shaking it, and they measured the vibrations. And however they corrected it and measured it where it was correct, they came out with this equation. So we use something called separation of variables. Separation of variables. So what we say is that we have this function value here, u, or it's not a value, the variable. U, it could be anything. We could have had an f, could have s. But what variables become calculation friendly? U just looks good, right? So we say u, we talking about polar coordinates, radius, theta, t. We're going to set this equal to function t of t from this variable right here, time. And then we're going to create another function, g of radius and theta. That's called separation of variables. What we did was we took a function of 3 variables and we made it a function. Now it's a solution of 2 functions, one with 1 variable and a function with 2 variables. And further along down in solving, we're going to take this function right here and we're going to separate this function again to have it be aura of aura, theta of theta. And that will be the complete, where instead of a partial differential, we'll just have a straight differential of 1 variable. And that's what we want, because we consistently know how to solve these 1 variable differential problems. Again, going back to the symmetry of numbers. Oh, this is very good. So next what we do is kind of complicated. I'm not going to explain it, but if you just kind of look, if I can interject some good thoughts where you might help you understand, then I will do that. But I'm just going to kind of solve it. But again, we start with the initial equation. This is the initial wave equation. Again, we just talking about waves. Breathing air, how the air really travels. We're looking at matter. Matter is important because we're looking at atoms and molecules and compounds. And again, we talk about Alzheimer's. We talk about Alzheimer's. It's just mass. Matter. Right? We talking about a tumor. Oh, I don't know. Tumor. I think that's how you spell it. Tumor. That's again just traveling. This is more like rigid. They got something called rigid geometry. We're not looking at rigid geometry. We're looking at differential. Differential geometry is what we're looking at. Differential geometry, the change in shapes. Because we talking about a certain fluid of mass. It's not like metal. Well, it is metal on a certain level, but it's not like a car metal or a piece of steel metal. So we call this differential geometry. Alzheimer's, if it's a tumor, how it changes. It's flesh. So next what we do, so we talking about the partial squared of u, the function u, and we set the function u equal to this right here. So you just got to know, now you got to know the methodology of partial differential equations. So, and not going through the complete derivation, just how I'm going to do it on the test, I already know because we're talking about the variable t. We're going to freak this. Can you see that? Yeah, you can see that. We're going to freak this, and we're going to keep this the same. So we say g r theta. Because look now, it's just with respect to t. It's not with respect to radius and theta. We just looking at the variable t. So we don't do nothing with this. And we do the differential, the partial differential with this. So that's going to be squared t with respect to t equals c squared, the Laplacian squared with the function u. Now we're not going to go into the Laplacian right now. We're just going to look at what's going on. Okay, so, and then I said that real fast. Let me do it again so we correctly understand. That's g r theta, the partial squared t with respect to t squared is equal to c squared t of t, the Laplacian g r theta. Correct? Now we're going to use the r and the theta. We're going to put that into the Laplacian because the Laplacian uses polar coordinates. So that gives us again, brothers and sisters, g r theta, the partial squared of t, respect to t squared equals the constant c squared t, the Laplacian squared g r theta. Notice how we didn't do nothing with this one because we were just talking about this variable. And then we didn't do nothing with this one on this side because we were talking about these variables. Very simple to understand. But when you look at submarines and tanks and they shooting atomic missiles and all that, this is where it comes from. This is the foundation for understanding that mathematics. Okay. So we next know that we equal this to some constant. They call that constant lambda. Right? But before, well, we can go ahead and go there. But before we do that, we try to match up what look alike in my language. So this t right here is this t right here, so they go together. This r and this theta go together, right? So they go together. So we just moving functions to either side of the equality. Let me see some. Okay, I like it better how my brother do it. How he show you how to do it. He's a real good professor. Let me write it over. Okay, so what we do now is we divide. We're going to divide with g and t. I'm not going to write it all out, but just so we understand. So we divide this entire equation with g and t. So you have gr theta, t over t, gr theta, t of t, where the two of t's cross these cross. So that gives you, now look now, we done went from, so now we're not talking about a partial of many variables. We talk about now just a derivative of a single variable, because we got the variables on either side where it's just a single variable. So now it's 1 over t of t. You change the partial symbol to a d. D stands for derivative of one variable. It's no longer a partial where the change in t as aura and theta are constant. It's just the change in T of T. And we do the same thing, and then we take this and we divide that with T. And again, with theory, I don't really know yet, and I haven't had the time to see like what happens if we keep the C squared on the right side of the equality with the function G, aura theta, or if we take it to the left side with the function T of T. But I'm assuming you can leave it either or and the answer will still be the same. And once you cross these out, you have 1 over G aura theta, the Laplacian of G aura theta. Right? So that's our equation. We done changed it up. And then we set this equal to this constant lambda. Again, I don't know the theory behind this also. I need to learn that eventually, inshallah. But because you have this equation right here, we intuitively know. See, that's one thing, brother. We know it's equal to something. But when you talk about math analysis, well, you got to prove it. You say you know it's equal to something. Well, let me see that language. Let me see that language where you trying to tell people it's equal to something. Okay, so you have 1 GR theta, the derivative squared of G no. You have 1 of C squared T of T, the derivative squared of T with respect to T squared equals 1 over G aura theta, the Laplacian squared G aura theta is equal to some constant. We call that constant negative lambda. So then we take each side of the equality and we have 1 over C squared T of T dt d squared T of T squared equals negative lambda. Right? Then we also have this part, the right side of the equality. Laplacian squared equals negative lambda. Right? And they call this an eigenvalue. The constant is an eigenvalue. And what we're doing, this is high level, brothers and sisters. We're finding, this is high level eventually. But we're finding eigenvalues and eigenfunctions. So if we just multiply this right here to the eigenvalue, we end up with d squared t dt squared is equal to a negative lambda times c squared t of t. Right? That's one solution for that eigenvalue lambda. Right? Then we're going to hold on to this. This is a little bit more complicated. So we're going to solve this, right? So what is the function? Again, what is the function? What is the function t of t? Well, in the experimentation, they give you a general solution. A general solution to make this equation right here true. Look now, we're talking about the differential squared. That's acceleration. This is a value with respect to t. This is a value. We want to know what this value is. Well, this value is equal to this right here. An eigenvalue, lambda, negative lambda, times some constant squared times the function. Well, you can make all of this up. What if you say lambda equals 1, c squared equals 1? You just don't know the function. What's the function? What's the function of a system? Like, what's the function of making $1 billion? Well, we know that function to be God, right? But God is so complex and understanding, many prophets, many books, many languages to know that function, but the function out there. So they have a general solution in finding this function, and that general solution is T of T is equal to a constant cosine lambda squared T plus a constant B sine lambda squared T. Now look, we're using cosine and sine. Again, those are just wave functions. We're talking about, again, the movement of matter. Let me write it again for you. A general solution, we can generalize. They have done experimentation where they can generalize for any solution dealing with a circular membrane vibrating. If they put this equation into a differential equation, they're going to come out with a correct solution of equality. So we have to solve this right here. So let me see what's going on. We go back to the initial conditions. We go back to the initial conditions. And the initial, look now, we're dealing with this variable, time. We got three variables. We got T, we got radius, we got the angle, theta. But now we're just dealing with the variable T. So the initial condition was the partial of U with respect to T when T is at 0, R of theta 0, that equals 0, right? But we done broke the U down to where's the partial of T with respect to T. We went from a three variable function to now we just talking about T. And we have a general solution. We know a general solution of whatever we're talking about is a constant cosine, this right here, square root of lambda T, plus a constant sine square root of lambda T. We know that to be equal. Okay, so let's look at how we do it now. This is the initial condition. So we first have to take the derivative. We got to derive this. What they call taking the derivative. That's, again, you got to just learn that methodology, like the pattern. But just to give it to you, it's a negative A. The derivative of cosine is negative sine. That's where the negative comes in. So it's negative A. You got to bring this out because with respect to T. So you take the lambda and you just change it to sine lambda T. Right, then you got B. Now the derivative of sine is cosine. It's not a negative, it's just cosine. You take the lambda out again. Lambda cosine lambda T of T. So now we have the derivative. You can write it like that too, just a T with this little mark right here. That equals this right here. If you see it 2 times, that equals, but it's just 1 time because the initial condition is the partial of U with respect to T at T equals 0 equals 0. But we first got to find what the derivative of T is. So we find the derivative of this general solution. That gives us negative A square root of lambda sine square root of lambda T plus B square root of lambda cosine square root of lambda T. Okay, so then what we do, the initial condition says that T equals 0, this equation equals 0. So we have to find the T's in the equation and just substitute it for 0. So that's A square root of lambda sine square root of lambda times 0, T, plus B square root of lambda cosine square root of lambda times T, which is 0, and we set that equal to 0. And again, brothers and sisters, I just seen this just to put this in here. I'm just really giving, like, I'm just solving the problem. Like, a lot of times, my problem is that you don't have no professors that really going to explain it to you. Now, sometimes you ain't got the time to break, because it's heavy theory. It take a lot of time. It's just real bad. Everything moving so fast. But that's not the game. The game is patience. And I got to really explain to your young person each step where it's a part of their life. I say that because I don't want you to get confused. Well, he ain't really showing, no, I'm not, no, I like, if you talking about, like, I'm tutoring, no, I show each step, and I'm going to give you theory, but again, we just solving it. I just want you to understand that. So this right here, because, like, a lot of times I'm assuming, like, we assume we know. No, we don't know. We don't know nothing. So, yeah, I have to take the time, each step, to explain it to you, but I'm not doing that here. I just want you to understand that. Okay, so this is equal to the derivative of t, and once we put in t equals 0, well, sine of 0 is 0. So that cancels that, and we left with cosine 0 is 1. So that leaves us with not beta, b, the square root of lambda, cosine 0 equals 0. That means that b square root of lambda equals 0. And then I love this again, right? Look. So then which one is equal to 0? Well, we know that lambda cannot equal 0 because initially we said lambda is greater than 0. I didn't put it up here. I'd be moving so fast, right? Again. But okay. I didn't put it up here. One reason, because I just forgot. But I forgot because I don't be doing it, because in taking the test, you ain't really got time to be showing little simple things. But that is important. I really just forgot. They got certain situations where we go back to, we said 1 over c squared t, the derivative squared of t with respect to t squared equals negative lambda. And then we said dt squared with respect to t squared is equal to negative lambda c squared t or t. Okay, when we in this form right here, then we have certain values that we take for this eigenvalue. Eigenvalue greater than 0, it's equal to 0, it's less than 0. We don't really use less than 0 because you don't have necessarily an eigen, like you do sometimes in certain situations, but realistically, you're going to have eigenvalues for greater than 0, equal to 0. And sometimes we don't really do, I be forgetting this too, right? Because we don't really be looking at that. And we really just be looking at greater than 0. So when lambda is greater than 0, when we go back to the constant times lambda equals 0, well, if lambda is greater than 0, then it can't be equal to 0. So that means that b is equal to 0. But if b is equal to 0, this goes back to analysis, which I found real beautiful, is that b is a variable. Well, we talking about not a specific number. Say if we said b1 equals 0. Well, then if b1 equals 0, then that's a specific number. So at a specific point, b1 equals 0. But when you say b equals 0, that means that the entirety of your system is equal to 0. Because whatever number you're dealing with, it's not going to matter, because b is equal to 0. And any number times 0 is 0. So when 0 is your answer, say we have f of x equals 0, well, that's a trivial solution. What they call a trivial solution. We're not looking, if it's a trivial solution and you're talking about a heater, like an electrical heater to heat up your facilities, if your heater is equal to 0, for b equals 0, like for every b is 0, then your heater not going to cut on. So because b equals 0, we call that a trivial solution. So we disregard this answer right here, and we go back to this answer that we crossed out right here. So we know that t, the derivative of t at t is equal to negative a, the square root of lambda, sine lambda t, right? But that's the derivative from the initial condition. So when you take the derivative and you get this answer right here, no, we don't want the derivative. We want the initial going back to the general. Where is the general equation? The general equation was t of t equals a cosine lambda t plus sine b sine lambda t. And then we took the derivative, right, to give us this right here. But we're not looking for the derivative. We're looking for this right here. So we use this right here. Okay, so now we have something called a general solution. A general solution. General solution for t of t, which is what we want to define, brothers and sisters. We want to define that function. And now we say t of t is equal to, what I say, cosine lambda t, and that's the function. And you normally probably see it as like t of t is equal to cosine x, and x is equal to lambda t. But this is part of what we were looking for. Remember now, we started with t of t, c squared. The c squared, it's lost in translation. Like the number becomes so insignificant that you can just disregard it. But again, that's theory that we have to learn actually where it went to, where I can explain it. That's at a certain higher level. With respect to t squared equals this eigenvalue. So we just said d squared t squared is equal to negative lambda c squared t of t. We found what t of t is. That's like halfway there. We got to find what this is. Okay, so now, having solved this part of the equation, remember it was two parts now. It was 1 over c squared t of t, d squared t with respect to t squared. That's one part. Then we had the second part, which was the Laplacian of g r of theta. Then we had 1 over g r of theta equal to negative lambda. So now we're going to deal with this part right here. This is where it get real good, brothers and sisters. So we have 1 over g r of theta times the Laplacian g r of theta is equal to negative lambda. So then we have the Laplacian squared g r of theta is equal to g r of theta negative lambda. Let me rewrite that again a little bit more clearer. The Laplacian g r of theta is equal to negative lambda g r of theta. And it's the same process. We got to find what g r of theta is. So again, we use separation of variables. Separation of variables. Now we're going to separate g r of theta into two singular variable functions. R of theta of theta. So see again how we took two variable functions and we made, it's a partial. The change in r with a constant theta, the change in theta with a constant r, now it's just a straight derivative. The change in r with respect to r, the change in theta with respect to theta. So now we have to translate this Laplacian, right, with aura, theta. So that's going to give us, let me see. That's going to give us, okay, how do I do this? Okay, yes. Let me write out the Laplacian first. To change your aura to change an aura plus 1 over r squared to change square root of theta with respect to theta squared. Okay, I could probably put an aura here, right? Okay. So then, this is how we do it. Since we're dealing with the variable aura, so we didn't freak this right here, so we know it's going to be theta 1 over aura with respect to aura with respect to aura. And then right here we're doing theta, the partial of theta. So we're going to freak theta, and we're going to leave aura. We're not doing nothing with aura. Aura 1 over r squared, the partial squared theta, respect to theta squared equals. Now again, we got the lambda, the negative lambda, and we said that the g of aura theta is equal to aura theta, right? So then what we do now, we're gonna divide and multiply this entire equation by aura squared theta aura, right? We're going to multiply this right here to this equation. So this cancels. Then one of these auras cancel. So that's going to give us aura, the partial with respect to aura, the partial of aura with respect to aura. Then this cancel right here. These cancel right here. So that's just going to give us theta. Theta didn't cancel. And the theta, the aura didn't cancel from here. I missed that, brothers and sisters, but it's an aura here also. It didn't cancel. And then that cancels, but the aura squared doesn't cancel. So you got lambda, the negative of lambda, aura squared. So let me rewrite it again. This is our equation. 1 over aura, the partial with respect to aura, the partial with respect to, the partial of aura with respect to aura, plus 1 over lambda, the partial squared of lambda with respect to lambda, or theta, equals negative lambda times aura squared. We're going to bring this lambda, it's a negative, we're just going to add it to both sides. That cancels, that cancels. That gives us 1 over aura, the partial with respect to aura, the partial of aura with respect to aura, plus 1 over theta, the partial squared of theta with respect to theta squared. Then we added this right here, r squared. That's equal to 0, but now we make it equal to another constant. We call that constant mu. Again, you could have called it whatever you want to call it, but they call it mu, or we use the symbol mu. Okay, let me see where we are. Or we say this equal to 0. I'll be jumping. I mean, it's either or, but just to follow the steps, homogeneous. So now we look at variables. You got an aura here, the radius. You got an aura here, so they go together. We got theta here, that's angle. We already found t equals time. Right, you're just dealing with variables. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract the theta to the opposite side. So we have a negative 1 over theta Now we're just dealing with single variables. So we change the partial symbol to a D, and we equate that. You got 1 over R D with respect to R D of R with respect to dr, plus lambda R squared. And now we equal that to mu. Either or, but just to keep it structured. So it's equal to a constant again. So we do the same thing as we did in the first couple of steps with the partial t of t. And we say that 1 over theta d squared theta with respect to theta squared is equal to mu. And that implies that d squared theta with respect to theta squared is equal to a negative mu theta. And then we're talking about mu. We're talking about mu greater than 0 and mu equals 0. This is an equation. I be forgetting that, right? Because it looks so crazy. We used to 1 plus 2, right? We used to 1 plus 2 equals 3, right? 3 plus 4 equals 7. Now we talking about d squared theta with respect to theta squared is equal to mu theta. That's an equation. So we got to find what these solutions are. So we say mu is greater than 0, mu is equal to 0, and we also have mu less than 0, but this really doesn't give us a value when we're talking about eigenvalues and eigenfunctions. So if we have d squared theta with respect to theta squared is equal to negative theta mu. So we have to find what theta of theta is. We have to find what that function is. Now, this function has a general solution. Again, the general solution is a constant cosine square root of theta. No, the square root of mu theta plus b sine the square root of mu theta. Now we have to go back to initial conditions. And remember, the initial conditions was the partial of u with respect to theta, r of theta 0, t equals 0, and then a partial of mu with respect to theta, r of pi, t equals 0. Is it equal to 0? Let me see if it's equal to 0. Okay, yes, both of them equal to 0. So we just have to find the derivative. Again, remember the derivative. We got to find what that is, the same steps. If you got cosine, you take the derivative, that's negative a. Bring out the mu, square root of mu. Sine, square root of mu theta, plus b, square root of mu cosine mu theta. So then we talking about at 0, theta 0 again. Sine 0 is 0. That cancels out. Sine 0, cosine 0 is 1. So that gives us b, the square root of theta. Right? So b equals 0 because theta is, we talking about theta greater than 0. So that's a trivial solution. So we can use this as a solution, negative a square root of mu sine square root of mu theta. So this is what the derivative of theta is equal to. So then we go to the second boundary condition. Well, if you have this equation, you know what it is. You just plug in the values, right? And we have that equal to 0. So now theta is equal to 0. That gives us theta pi equals negative a, the square root of pi sine. No. It's theta. Let me slow down, brothers and sisters. The derivative of theta, when theta is equal to pi, is equal to negative a mu sine square root of mu pi, that equals 0. Well, if negative a was equal to 0, that'd be trivial. That's not what we want. Mu cannot be 0 because it's greater than 0. So we're left with sine square root of mu pi, right, equals 0. So you only have, so remember, let's look at the sine graph. The sine graph. Whenever the sine wave crosses the x-axis, that's when it's equal to 0, right? And this is ongoing. It's a periodic function. Unless you really know what's going on in the future. This is at 0. This is at pi divided by 2. This is 90 degrees. This is at 180 degrees, or pi. This is at 3 pi divided by 2, or 270 degrees. And this right here is 2 pi. And this goes on. It ends up being pi, the sine function, sine of x, is equal to 0 whenever you have an integer. Remember, integer goes back to integers, natural numbers. You're going to see how very important it is. Is this a natural number times pi? Pi is 3.14 radians, or 180 degrees. So that's when, so sine of n times pi equals 0 forever, when it goes on forever. So let's go back to our function. We had sine of mu pi equals 0. So to make this function equal 0, that means that mu has to equal n over pi, but it's a square root. So you got to square the variables. Correct? So look now, we already have pi here. So this becomes, we cancel that out, and mu just becomes a natural number, or a variable, n squared. Again, we squared because of the square root. So look now, look how beautiful this is. We got sine the square root of n squared pi equals 0. Now this is how you, like when you come out with something, you can't just come out with it. It has to be true. So when you take the square root of n squared, that's sine n pi equals 0, and that's correct. No matter what value, again, n is in the natural number set. So what you can have 10 pi, that's still going, when you say 10, the sine of 10 pi, that's still equal to 0. It could be the 1 million pi sine function. It'll still be equal to 0. So that's where that comes. That thing is beautiful, where it has to, the equality has to be true. So we just found mu, which is a eigenvalue, to be n squared, and we found we are finding eigenvalues and eigenfunctions, specifically when we're dealing with atoms and protons and neutrons at a subatomic level. And the eigenfunction is sine n pi. But let's see, we were talking about the derivative. So we go back to this equation. Can you see it? You might can't see it. When we go back to this equation right here, we have a theta equals a cosine mu theta plus b sine the square root of mu theta. So then we took the derivative, and that gave us a negative a square root of mu sine square root of mu theta. So we started with this to find our eigenvalue and our eigenfunction. So we used the cosine, So now we found a second function for our equation, and that function is cosine the square root of mu theta. We just dropped the coefficient or the constant, but it's going to come back in the general solution for the initial boundary conditions. So now, and then look now, we found the eigenvalue to be n squared. Remember the n squared, even though it's square root, and you're going to see how it comes out where it's just going to be cosine n pi. But initially, don't get confused. This is the eigenfunction. This is not the eigenvalue. The eigenvalue is n squared. It has to be squared because the eigenvalue was in a square root. And this is n squared for n equals 1, 2, 3. This is another simplistic use of language, but you have to really, well, you don't have to, it's implied, but you should for your understanding that we talking about for values of n equal 1, 2, 3 natural numbers. So let's look now. We found let's see if we see the t value. Where is the t value? Okay. But we know the t value. The t value is t of t equals cosine of t. Now we haven't found lambda yet. I don't think we done found, no, did we find lambda? I don't think we found lambda yet, right? So I'm gonna see how that come about. It might still be mu. Damn, see, that's where my patience come in, right? So I'm gonna be patient and just see how that work out, right? Okay, that was for mu greater than 0. Now we have to find it for mu equals 0. So let's go back to the differential. We had d squared theta with respect to d squared is equal to negative mu theta. Okay, that was for mu greater than 0, this right here. But now we want to find when mu is equal to 0. When mu is equal to 0, 0 times theta is 0. So this is equal to 0. So we have d squared is equal to d squared equals 0. So we have to find what this is. And I wish I had fluent. I love this right here, right? Because it's so simple, but it gives you great understanding of how to deal with integrals. Right, so you finding that what we're doing now is we're finding the integral. This is an integral symbol. Integral. What they call integration. They got mathematical integration. Mathematical integration. And integration is just another way to find area. The area of a system. Area of system. But it's so profound, right? So we had d squared theta squared equals 0, right? So then you have d of theta equals c1. That's how the integral works. That's again a certain type of system or method of solution. And if you take the derivative again, it'll give you theta equals c1 theta plus c2. C1 and c2 are just constants. Again, this is for mu equal to 0. Again, d squared theta with respect to theta is equal to negative mu theta. This is 0. Mu is equal to 0. So that's 0. So we got this equal to, take the integral. It gives us theta equals C1 theta plus C2. So then I think the initial solution, the initial conditions, is for theta. You got to take the derivative at 0. So if you take the derivative of this equation right here, that just gives us equals C1 equals 0. So that's another trivial solution. Even though I got C1, C1 is not a specific, it's a specific infinity of value. It's a specific infinity values of C. It's not a specific value of C. It's a specific infinity volume of C. It's not C2 infinity, it's C1 infinity. So since C1 is equal to 0, that's a trivial solution. So it's equal to C2. Equal to C2. Or better yet, to correctly write it, right? It's equal to C2. But we also know it's a 1 here. Always understand 1 times anything is itself. I think that's one of the properties of arithmetic. So at mu equals 0, the eigenfunction is equal to 1 for n equals 1, 2, to infinity. N is the natural number in the natural number set. Okay. Okay, so let me see if we found everything. Did we find everything? No, we got to solve the, okay, now we got to solve the, so you got different parts. You got time, you got the time function, which was t or t. You got the angle function, which was theta or theta. And now we got to find the radius function. The radius function, again, was dealing with the Laplacian. So we have 1 over the derivative with respect to r, the derivative of r with respect to r, plus, what was it plus? It was plus, plus r squared is equal to mu. Okay, so then what we do is we multiply the r throughout the equation to get these canceled, and that'll be r here. So that gives us r d of dr respect to d of dr plus r lambda r squared equals to mu of r. You subtract the mu from both sides, or you add, subtract the mu from both sides. You get r d of r with respect to r, d of r with respect to r, plus r lambda r squared minus mu of r equals to 0. Another homogeneous equation. Homogeneous. We just subtract the mu of r from both sides. They cancel. They give you a 0. So you have this right here. We next see that these two right here are equal. So we can pull that out of the difference. So we have r d with respect to d of r d of r, d of r, plus now you pull the r out, and you have lambda r squared is equal to mu equals 0. But understand, brothers and sisters, we said that mu was equal to what? M squared or n squared? N squared. For mu greater than 0, mu is equal to n squared. I believe that's what we found, brothers and sisters. Is that correct? Let's see if we can find it right here. You see it in the notes. right here, mu equal to n squared. So right here we have mu equal to m squared. So this becomes r lambda r squared minus n squared equals 0 plus this right here. Okay. So when you have an equation of this form right here, this ends up being r when you simplify this right here, r squared d squared r d of r plus r d of r plus r lambda r squared minus n squared equals 0. When you have an equation of this form right here, they use something called the Bessel equation. Bessel equation. And with the Bessel equation, it's a substitution type situation. We're talking about radius, r of r. And we say that z is equal to the square root of, what was it the square root of? Lambda r. And when we substitute this variable z into this equation, we get z squared, d squared r with respect to z squared, plus z dr respect to z, plus r z squared minus n squared equals 0. Let me make sure I got that one variable correct. I hate to look, brothers and sisters, but hold on 1 second. Okay, no, that is correct. Okay. Okay. Now, we're not going to use the entirety of this equation. So what we do now, let me see if you can see this. Okay. Is we take this right here, this variable right here, this is a function. Remember, it was the function r, I just shorthanded it. But now we're dealing with z, and we say that r of z is equal to something called a Bessel equation, and that's going to be function a of a Bessel variable of the first order, which is the square root of lambda, I think it's nm, or just we're going to say lambda. Is it lambda r or lambda z? I think it's lambda r plus b, another Bessel variable, the square root of lambda r. Let me see if I have that correct. Yes, that is correct. Okay. So this is called a Bessel equation. Is it lambda? What did I just, lambda r plus beta ym lambda r. Okay. So now what we do, let me make sure I get this correct. Actually, I jumped ahead of myself. These are supposed to be Z's, but it's just an understanding where we go from aura. We say that the lambda, square root of lambda aura, now I have no theory with this, brothers and sisters. I'm only using it, I'm only showing it that it works. Just understanding the methodology and process, but I don't have a theory or I don't have no knowledge of the experiments that create this equation while we would use only that is simple. And again, we just dealing with natural numbers. M is a natural number in the natural number set. And you'll understand it's these numbers right here that make this thing work. But they do have something. Because you take the limit as the radius goes to 0 or to A, y of m goes to infinity. So we don't have to use this in this context. So we're only using r with respect to r, j of m, lambda r. We're only using this part right here. And that's really our solution for the radius. I believe that's correct. So then we have to take the derivative, because then again the initial conditions was d of r with respect to r. We talking about a theta t equals 0. So we take the derivative of this equation right here. Is equal to a square root of lambda j of m with respect to r. Is it equal to 0? Equals 0. But it's a equals 0. So then we say for the eigenvalue m of n greater than 0, we have an eigenfunction. The eigenfunction equals j of m, the square root of lambda m of n, r. Right, a lot of this is tedious. I just know that this solution, because I have no theory on it, right? So I can just go straight here, right? But just to try to go through the steps. The only thing we changed, brothers and sisters, is that we went from a lambda where it had no subconstant, no subvariables, to now it has subvariables. And again, these are subvariables of natural numbers. Except I don't think, well, no, they're natural numbers. And you have to get that right? So I know he might take off. Like he like I say, he a good professor, so he ain't gonna hurt me necessarily, right? Right, but I'm still trying to understand. I'm trying to get that clear. Cause we're looking for the 0 values of m. So you have a certain number of root values for this solution. So that's where the n comes in at. Okay. But understand now, we done found the third function. We're dealing with 3 variables: radius, angle, and time. And we had to find the function for each one of these variables. Because remember now, the function was u of r of theta t, which is polar coordinates. But we're trying to find the partial differential of u as it changes in time. This is acceleration. With respect to t, time equal to some constant with the Laplacian of that function. This is what we're solving. And we had to find these equations with the separation of variables. Separation of variables, separation of variables. So this is the general solution. Look now, this is our equation. We got to solve this. So now we had to find this right here. And we just took the steps to find that. So we have a general solution. And that general solution is summation as m goes from 1 to infinity. Summation as n goes from 1 to infinity. And you just have a random constant. Then you had the Bessel function. Radius. Then you had cosine. Remember, mu was equal to m pi. And then you had cosine lambda t. Right? So that's the equation right there. Let me write it again, brothers and sisters, so you see what it is. R theta is equal to summation m equals 1 to infinity, n equals 1 to infinity, amn, the Bessel function, the mnr, cosine m pi, cosine lambda t, okay, so now it's a whole lot in there, right? I'm not confused. I just have to look at it to see actually how he okay, and I'm missing this C, right? That's a point. I'll be missing that. For the T value, that's the T? Yeah, that's the T value. Okay. Yeah, I missed that. So how did we go from C squared to C? That's a good point, right? How did we go? Okay, yeah, brothers and sisters. Remember the C squared right here, right? How do we go from it being squared to just it being a C value? Because when we were doing the initial, when we said that T of T is equal to A cosine, okay, it's C square root of lambda. Okay, I don't know the theory behind it, plus B sine C square root of lambda T, right? So in that derivation, to make the calculations easier, we'll take shortcuts, right? To make it where it's not C squared, it's C, but that's why I missed it at right here. So that's where the C comes in for this general solution. But we still, just and understanding everything, that's really insignificant. That's more, again, at a graduate level, but we got to find the value of this right here. So we're not finished, and we have something that I love. So again, you have initial conditions. And if we go back to the beginning of the problem, we had an initial condition that u r of theta 0 equals a function alpha r of theta. So this value of t is 0. So we put, wherever we see a t, we put 0 there. So this t right here for this function is 0. Cosine 0 is equal to 1. Can you see that? Let me write it again. Cosine 0 is equal to 1. So we just cancel that. And that gives us the summation m equals 1. The summation n equals 1 to infinity. Amn. The Bessel function lambda mn r cosine m pi, that equals this function right here, alpha, aura theta. And this is when we apply again the Fourier series dealing with orthogonality of functions, of cosine and sine functions, which is powerful because it makes it a lot easier. And let me see something. Now this derivation right here, once you learn it, it's easy. But we don't really, again, we at an undergraduate level. We're at an undergraduate level, right? So we're not really studying the derivation of what it is, but it has a structure. And that structure is for the subscripts mn equals, is it a double? Yeah, it's a double integral. It's a double. Yeah, it's a double integral. Okay, yeah, it's a double integral because we're talking about, I think it's called a Jacobian derivative or Jacobian something with d theta. So you got from 0 to pi, then you got from you got from 0 to r, and then you got this function right here, which is pi r theta. And then you have, how would I write that? I can go back to that, right? Where it's g r theta. Ha ha ha. R d theta divided by 0 pi 0 to r. Let me make sure no 0 to a. Then we got g r theta squared. Remember now, when we first did the separation of variables, we had t of t g r theta. And so we just applied, again, I don't know the theory to this. This is just a structure. R d theta. So this is also the answer. So when you take this variable equal to this equation and you put that into this equation, which is a general solution, all right, so let me write it again. Let me see if I can write it again. So we started with this equation right here. We started with the partial squared of u with respect to t squared is equal to c squared, the Laplacian squared of u. This is a wave equation. It gives us the distribution of what something is doing in space. We had to count, this is in polar coordinates. They give you boundary conditions. They give you initial conditions. To solve this equation, you have to find the function u. U is in polar coordinates, radius, angle, time, and we found that equation to be the summation of m equals 1 to infinity times the summation of n equals 1 to infinity. Is m is a coefficient a sub m of n, the Bessel function lambda mn of radius r times cosine m pi times cosine, is it m pi? Yes, m pi times cosine c the square root of lambda t. Is that correct? Let me make sure, brothers and sisters. Okay, that's correct, sort of, kind of. Okay, yeah, no, yeah, that's why I need to stop being stupid, right? And start just thinking, right? That time factor. So it's mu r theta t equal to the summation m of 1 equals 1 to infinity. The summation n equals 1 to infinity. The coefficient a sub n, the Bessel function, the square root of lambda m sub mn, radius times cosine mu theta times cosine the square root of lambda sub mnt. Now the initial condition, brothers and sisters, was that u of r theta t equals 0 is equal to alpha of r theta. So when we put 0 as t, this is equal to 1, and that gives us theta 0 equals to the summation m equals 1 theta, n equals 1 to infinity, not to theta. M equals 1 to theta, to infinity. M equals 1 to infinity. N equals 1 to infinity. The coefficient a sub mn, the Bessel function, square root of lambda mn r cosine m theta. So then so this is our solution to this problem right here. Now we have to find what this coefficient is. And this coefficient has, again, a general solution. And that's equal to a of mn equals to the double integral 0 to pi, 0 to a. Remember this right here? Right? Now this Jacobian can take on two values. So we go back to this function right here. Then I think it's called the Jacobian. We apply the Jacobian. And then we divide that by the integral pi, the double integral a, and then we just square this equation with the Jacobian. And that's our solution. So these two, this right here, a sub mn, and this right here is a solution to this equation right here. And so that's actually very good, brothers and sisters. A'udu billahi minash shayatin rajim.